Joining us from our D.C. newsroom, Karen Feld, syndicated columnist for Capital Connections, who has interviewed Elian's grandparents in Cuba just last month. Karen, welcome.
Good morning, Bridget.
Good morning. Tell us what your time spent with Elian's grandparents was like.
I went to the home of Elian's maternal grandparents, and I talked to the grandfather briefly. Saw the home. He is a very nice man, seems to be very emotional. The problem is that these people were being watched so closely by the government, by the communist people put on their streets outside their homes, that they weren't really free to talk. And there was a lot of body language, and he expressed, he expressed his thanks to the Americans for saving Elian. He was glad he was safe. He did not think Elian would ever be returned to Cuba. And what I got was a mixed message. On one hand, he was supposed to say he wanted him back. I mean, there were posters everywhere. That's the party line. On the other hand, I'm not sure that he really did. The impression that I got is he felt that Elian would have a better life here in the States.
Did you get, so, Karen, it's just so hard to tell, Cuba being what it is, to really get a sense from these people how they feel about the child and what their relationship truly is like. But did you get the sense that these people were close with Elian?
Well, the grandparents were. As far as the father goes, what you have to remember, so many Americans are judging the father-child relationship or father-son relationship by our standards. In Cuba, it is very different. At age 6 or 7, the child is sent off to a work camp. They're indoctrinated with the communist beliefs. And the real father is Fidel Castro. He is the only one that matters to these people, and that's what they're taught to believe. So Elian, even at a younger age, did not spend much time with his father. I mean, he had a new wife, he had a new baby born just around the time that Elian had left for the States. So there was a different life there, and the family then was put very much under the control of Fidel.
So, Karen, if we are to believe that Elian and his father are not close, is it because of the Cuban government, or is it because he has a new family?
Well, I think it's two reasons. I think one, it's because of the Cuban government, but two, his parents were divorced, and he lived with his mother and his maternal grandparents. So I think that's a huge part of it. The father maybe saw him one weekend a month.
What else do you think life would be like for Elian if he were to go back to Cuba now?
Well, first of all, there is no milk for kids over age 6. There's not a lot of medication. There's free health care, but his grandparents live right over the pharmacy. The shelves are empty. Elian and his friends are on the streets begging for aspirin, the kids like that. There's not enough food. There's one cake of soap a month. They're begging for that. The bathrooms in the houses where Elian lives, you pull back a curtain, it's literally a hole in the cement.
And yet, don't you think if he went back, Castro would see to it that he puts a good face on this for the world, and that Elian might get good treatment?
Well, I'm not sure that Castro really cares about that. He cares about a face, but the face would be what he's done now by painting the front of his Elian's father and his grandparents' homes. It doesn't help fix up the inside.
Okay, Karen Feld, wish we had more time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bridget.
Very interesting work from Capital Connections there.
Hey, this is Karen Feld. She's a syndicated columnist for Capital Connections. Karen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You had the opportunity just a month ago to go to Cuba, and you visited Elian's neighborhood. You saw where his father worked. You met with Castro's #2 man. Give us your impression of what you saw.
Well, Elian's hometown of Cardenas, which is about 2 hours from Havana, is a very small, old-fashioned town with few cars, carriages in the streets. Most of the people, the neighbors, are out on the streets. Their homes are row homes. They're what we would consider really the worst of the tenements in this country. I talked to quite a few people. They're mostly very scared. They're afraid to talk. They've got the party line. If you get them one-on-one, some of the ones, particularly the younger ones, you give them a couple dollars, you give them a cake of soap, some aspirin, some candy, things like that that they want. We'll talk to you. One of the teachers at the school where Elian goes, not Elian's teacher, but one of the others, told me that Elian has been brainwashed, brain damaged in America, rather. The word he used was brain damaged. But I think what he really meant was brainwashed, sort of out of the communist beliefs. So, of course, when he would get back, if he went back, they would have to deprogram him, quote, or reprogram to be a communist.
Hey,
But
Karen,
this is the whole attitude.
we hear these stories of how bad things are in Cuba as far as everyone is poor and there's not as much there for them as there is in the United States. Is that any reason, though, to keep a father from his son?
No, I don't think that in itself is the reason. But I think that in Cuba, the father does not act like a parent. It's not a father-child relationship as we know it in this country and in most of the world.
So we should take all the kids from Cuba and bring them here?
The child is a ward of the state.
Right.
In essence, Castro becomes his father, tells them what to do.
So should we bring all the kids from Cuba here? I mean...
No, I don't think we should bring other kids from Cuba here. But this kid, you have to think there was some kind of fate. First of all, his mother sacrificed her life. He was held up by the dolphins or porpoises in the water. There is some reason. This kid is a survivor. The fact is he's here. How traumatic would it be for him to go back? Plus, if he went back, who knows what would happen to him? He could be killed, he could be imprisoned, anything.
What did Ricardo Alarcón, Castro's #2 man, tell you about this?
Well, what he said, and this man, by the way, many people feel will be Castro's heir apparent, and he currently is president of the National Assembly in Cuba. He said that they were not letting that Elian's father wasn't coming to Miami originally because he was afraid that the Americans would not let him out to go back. Well, in reality, what that means is the Cuban government was afraid that he would defect and not come back to Cuba.
And Karen, quickly, we just have a few seconds. Do you believe a lot of the things that the Miami relatives say his father is saying about his mother being washed up on shore and she's now alive? Do you think that's true?
I don't know about that. I do know that I talked to many of the father's friends there who said that the father has a tremendous temper. They've described him as acting like an animal, so that he doesn't sound like the most level-headed guy in the world. I mean, the comments that I heard about the mother were a lot more favorable.
Karen Feld, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Who has a good head on her shoulders, Edie?
I sure do, too. Karen Feld, syndicated columnist who's been following the Elian Gonzalez case very closely, joining us from D.C. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Edie.
Hey, what do you make of Juan Miguel's speech as he got off the plane?
Well, I just got back from Cuba, and I was in Cardenas, and I also was in Havana and met with Ricardo Alarcón, who's probably the heir apparent to Castro. So you hear a lot about what the party line is in Cuba. I think the speech this morning was very much party line. It was clearly written by high-up communist officials. I think when he threw little things out, for example, attacking the media when Elian was interviewed, well, sure, they don't have free speech. They don't have media in Cuba that can go do things like that. When he talked about something about he didn't know what medication Elian was being given or something about that. We don't know what medication Elian's being given either, but the fact is, in Cardenas, where they live, I went to his grandparents' apartment, which is on top of the only pharmacy in town, and the shelves in the pharmacy were empty. Kids on the street are even begging for aspirin. So there is no medication. So if he needed it, at least here, he's getting it. So I think that the fact he didn't take questions, he was carefully packaged by his lawyer, Gregory Craig, who is very shrewd, who has a very difficult job because he was in Cuba negotiating with Fidel for this.
You don't
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Karen. One of the things that I want to get from you is you don't think he's going back to Cuba.
No time soon, and I don't think he's going back at all. I think there's a strong possibility that his father could defect. I mean, don't forget, his father right now is in the Communist Party. He's loyal. He's dedicated, at least what we hear. He has never seen what life is like here. You can't make choices. Nobody can make choices until you see what they are and experience them. The longer he stays here, I think the likelihood of him defecting is greater.
All right, Karen Feld, thank you very much for joining us live from Washington. Here in our New York...
More about the international custody battle from Washington, Karen Feld. She is syndicated columnist for Capital Connections. And from Miami, immigration attorney Ira Kurzban. Thank you very much for coming, both of you. Now Karen, as I understand it, you've been recently to Cuba. Describe for us what it's like for the average 6-year-old in Cuba. What kind of life is he going to be going back to?
I went to Cardenas, Elian's hometown. I went to the home where his father lives and also his maternal grandparents. A 6-year-old kid in about another year, the rations for the milk will be up, so he will get no more milk. They are entitled to have meat, which is usually pork or chicken, about twice a month. There is no fish for the local Cubans. That's only for the tourists.
Now, wait a minute. Let me just stop you. Let me just stop you right there. It is illegal for people in an island surrounded by hordes of fish, to eat the fish that they have surrounding it.
It's illegal, well, for them to eat it, yes. They catch it. They claim it's very expensive, and it's for the tourists. Now, don't forget, even though American tourists can't go there, there are a lot of European and Canadian tourists. It's a big industry. There was a lot of lobster, a lot of shrimp, a lot of red snapper, and actually it was wonderful. And it was, you know, expensive by their standards, not by our standards here. But no, it is not for the local people. There is not medicine on the shelves in the pharmacies. Kids on the streets are begging for even aspirin.
Ira, you've just been hearing Karen sort of describe the laundry list of things that she has seen. Could probably go on for some minutes. Do you think, yourself as an immigration lawyer, that that the immigration law, which the INS and the Justice Department seems to be trying to adhere to very strictly, can be bent in any way, considering the sort of things that Karen's describing?
Well, I think first of all, what is it that we're really saying? That a child should not be with his father because they would be living in a poorer country than the United States? I guess if that were the standard, then every child in the world would be allowed to be in the United States under that theory and taken away from his parents.
I don't think it's about a poorer country. It's about freedoms.
Obviously, Cuba is a poorer country than the United States is. But here you have a very strong bond between a father and a child, and I think our law is very clear. And I don't think, actually, the immigration law could bend that in the sense that a father always has the right to be reunified with his child. And indeed, even, you know, the family here were saying for months, if the father would only come, then we would resolve this matter, and if he came and said he wanted his son back, we would certainly honor that wish.
But Karen, the question has always been exactly what the father really wants. It becomes clear now that he made a collect call 3 days before Elian was found. Two relatives in Miami, they say that collect call was about preparing for the arrival of Elian. Of course, it was after Elian was found, after the pressure from Castro, that he might have changed his tune. Will we ever find out what the father really wants?
I don't know if we will unless he's here long enough.
Just a second, Ira, go ahead.
No, but if he will have to be here for a while and kind of get out of this communist indoctrination before we find out. Because right now, he cannot say what he wants. He read a speech, which is what Castro wants. If he takes Elian back to Cuba, he is not Elian's father. I mean, legally he's a father, but Elian becomes a ward of the state there. And Elian does what the government wants him to do, which is total, he goes to a work camp, he's indoctrinated with communist beliefs, he can't say things. He will not be able to tell his classmates about his trip to Disneyland if he goes back to Cuba, or about anything else that happened here, or how he feels.
All right, Karen and Ira, unfortunately we have to leave it there, but Karen Feld and Ira Kurzban, we thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Elian's father makes an emotional plea just minutes after landing on U.S. soil. You'll get to...